Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. I'm a licensed cognitive behavior therapist, that's a CBT therapist, and a licensed mental health counselor. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the contents in this channel. Today, I'd like to go back to the case of the Idaho 4. May the victims rest in peace, condolence to the families, and may the correct justice be served. This case seems to just get more baffling as time goes by. It just seems like since the 911 calls have come out 6-7 weeks ago, everything seems to be just coming out like a speed train. There's no breaks in the new updates that are coming. I personally believe, and I feel like it's to see how we, the public, felt about the first part they've released of the 911 calls and the 911 transcript. And when they saw that it was kind of like half off, that in fact more than 0.5% of the world who's been following this case is wondering that why doesn't it make sense? Especially the fact that we heard that there was red liquid on the railing, and such things made it just more baffling. This is not a shut and open case. This is actually a case that seems to be exposing more that Koberger couldn't have done this. And if he did this, he couldn't have done this by himself. From the very beginning of this case, I've been not only following this case, I've been covering this case. I've been repeating some of the topics a couple of times, right from the beginning, if you'll go back to my channel. I'd like to welcome all the new subscribers. I'd like to thank all my subscribers, especially my subscribers who've been with me from the very beginning. From the beginning of this case, I've always held the theory from my thoughts, from my research. I was the first YouTuber, honestly, that started looking closer at the frats. Because let's go back to the beginning. The frats were the only ones, the Sigma Chi frats, or Sigma Chi frats, were the only ones who put their Facebook on private. They went back to 2018 and hid everything. And behavior is very important, right before the crimes and right after the crimes. Why would they go back and hide all the coverage, all the photos, all the pictures they've ever taken, the history from 2018 to 2022, until these crimes, the quadruples, happened? Let's remember that. Why was the Sigma Chi frats and the boys at the band field and the grub truck people my main focus, which you can see my main clips are all about the band field and all about the grub truck? It's not to run with a narrative. Seeing is believing. What you see with your eyes can't deceive you. It's not like it's a witness telling you what was going on at the grub truck. It's clear to see that Maddie and Kaylee can't see what's really going on. It looks like, to start with the live stream, the grub truck was on a live stream. So they were already thousands of people tuned in. It could have been a soccer, it could have been anyone who was falling, Maddie and Kaylee. Then you had not a live stream, maybe possible soccer. You have somebody who's known to sex harass females. He was kicked out of his frat, Delta Tau Delta. I'm talking about Showalter. We have somebody here with behaviors that are really concerning, behaviors that need to be asked. What was exactly going on? All we saw is Showalter escorting the girls. We don't know if it's true, but it seems most likely that it's true that he was kicked out of the corner club. So he could have been just hanging around and waiting for Maddie and Kaylee to come out. He already passed and said, and we're going to get to you, Maddie. So there was already things going on with the grub truck. Then look at Banfield. Pay attention to what's going on. The young three lads look really distressed. They were running in the field. I've always wondered what could they have thrown in the field. These are normal thoughts, and this is the critical way of thinking. You are supposed to think every possibility. Why did they refuse to stop for the cops? Linda Lane is one footage you'll see that I don't cover in my channel, and there's a reason behind that. I try to follow the facts where it leads me and what I see, the videos, what Dovito is watching, what Saeed is watching, is what I first exposed on YouTube and on social media to the public. Kaylee was found in the sitting position, unfortunately. But it's important that the correct justice is served, not just justice. Now, the latest news that has come out is that when DM was running down to BF's room, she saw Xana sitting on the floor and she had her back towards the wall. That is sad. So she thought she was intoxicated and DM carried on. I can understand she's concerned. So she ran for life. But what surprises me is the whole 911 call just looks like it's a bunch of nonsense. I'm not saying that it's all fake, but I personally do not feel any real, genuine emotions because there's so many things that doesn't make sense to start with. From the very first time the 911 call was released, I've always asked myself, they called in saying there was an unconscious person. For them to have known that there was an unconscious person, that means somebody saw the unconscious person. But yet again, further down the lane, after they managed to confuse the 911 operator and she had to say, stop passing the phone around. I've spoken to 4 people already. That is the time Hunter decides to say, go, go, go. They went and saw the scene they saw. But yet again, they knew there was an unconscious person. So make that make sense. They called in and said there was an unconscious person. They sounded like they were whispering behind the phone. They sounded like their voices was being not genuine. Something was not right on the phone. Why did they still decide after 8 to 9 hours to call 911? Pay attention. DM called her dad. BF called her mom. BF called her dad. They called someone called JM. DM was creating numbers. DM and BF were sexting each other. But if she ran down to the first floor, why did she need to text her? Nothing makes sense out of the story. But yet again, DM saw Xana in the sitting position on the floor, with her back kneeling towards the wall. And yet again, she didn't think to even check on her or call 911. That doesn't make sense. The roommates debated whether they should go out for a late night snack at the food truck. So we don't know if that is the grub truck, but they decided to go out for a snack. I would assume that would be DM and BF. The reason I say that is because Maddie and Kaylee just came from the grub truck, and they remember all the pressure they went to. They remember all the things I'm sure they had to go to because they ditched Shawalter. So I don't believe it was them. Why didn't they just order in? Nothing makes sense of DM and BF's statement. And I believe they have two different statements because they both were doing two different things. And that's why BF is statements to what she saw as a witness, what she heard as a witness allegedly, becomes exculpatory evidence. She has something that DM doesn't have. Maybe one of them is being genuine about what happened that night and one isn't. Let's be frank. Somebody is lying here. When people say, and Steve Congalvis made an interview with DT show yesterday, and it was kind of interesting of certain things he said. Very interesting. He says so many things that doesn't make sense, and yet again he says he found it out before the gag order, or you found it out through his own research. Have you noticed one thing? He keeps on saying that Kaylee's injuries were so bad now that we know that she's had multiple different weapons that were used on poor Kaylee. May she rest in peace, and all of them. It makes me wonder, how come Steve Gongalves, Steve G, has so much information? Information like Kaylee wouldn't have made it. Information like there was a hell of a fight upstairs. How would he know that? And what is up with DM, honestly? Besides the fact that one of the motives I can believe if DM is allegedly involved, or if she knows something, is definitely due to the fight they had in Halloween. Or due to the bullying that went on in Halloween. DM looked really uncomfortable in the pictures. And Maddie put that up, unfortunately, on TikTok. DM could be hiding some secrets. Her gender example. Allegedly, according to what all the college students says and what is out in the public, not public but out in the media, DM had her own choice of lifestyle. So did that put her as a target to be bullied? because we saw that on Maddie Morgan is TikTok. And the name calling and the shame calling is there. That is true. And coincidentally, 13 days later, this horrific quadruples take place. Doesn't make sense to me. Why wouldn't the surviving roommates call 911 for 8 hours, 9 hours? Why was DM texting E.G., Eric G., Eric Garner, the private shared driver? Why is it now that it's coming out in bits and bits that, oh, she wanted food? Why isn't there other drivers in town? Where was Xana and Ethan in these timings? If Maddie and Kaylee came home at 1:56 and they were talking to DM and BF, and they all were craving for some kind of food, or just say DM and BF were craving for food from the food truck, where was Ethan and Xana? I believe, and I've always said right up to today, something happened and they were unalived earlier. 2 a.m. they were unalived. And I'm actually starting to believe, could they have been attacked on the way home? Ethan sent a last text to his friend, and he said that he was still at the Sigma Chi party. So he was still at the frats, and that was 2 a.m. So Ethan couldn't have been at home until 2:10. I've always said something happened at 2:10 with Ethan and Xana. But Maddie and Kaylee were calling Jack D. Doesn't mean Jack D is completely innocent. He could be involved and he could have been making up his own alibi. You could have got someone to call. He could have been, sorry to say, at the property calling the girls. What proof do we have that both the girls were alive? Phone activities will continue. Somebody could be running around with my phone. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm running up and down the steps with my phone. Nothing makes sense here. I've never said that Koberger is completely innocent. I still believe that Koberger has some role to play because things don't make sense. I've always said that in almost every clip I've made. But now that the fact that there's so many activities going around 2 a.m., 2:10 a.m., it's questionable what was actually going on. And after 3 a.m., everything became silent. Maddie Morgan made a last call to BF at 2:53. That was right after she made a last call to Jack D. But didn't they say that Maddie was not in a state of defending herself? I've always said number 9 put something in her mouth. He even gave the sign like this that he was going to put her to sleep. You're selling number 8. I don't understand why the coroner says the toxicological reports are not important. Poor Kaylee. She got it really bad. And now that the fact that they're saying that multiple weapons were used, allegedly, it makes sense that there was red liquid on the railings. Many things are starting to make sense. When I see one of the Banfield boys with a glove, it is questionable. because it was said that there was one glove found on the scene, outside the scene. There's all questionable behaviors that I can't ignore, that I refuse to ignore. And the strange thing is, I've been busy these days, I haven't been making clips, but I've been watching. And every time I watch these new documents coming out, it's just so sad that it's such a sad case and that nobody needs to lose their life. But besides that, every documentary that comes out, it just makes me more motivated in finding the truths, because it looks like the research I've been doing from the beginning, what I've been exposing of Saeed at the bandfield, watching Kaylee in the sitting position, allegedly. I showed that before her parents even spoke about that. Then you have the second thing that I showed, the grub truck number 9, putting something allegedly in Kaylee's mouth, Maddie's mouth. He gave that sleeping position to number 8 right after Kaylee whispered something in his ears. There was my second red flag. Then the grub truck started, just more and more red flags started coming out. With Jovito and his statements that don't make sense. He says he doesn't know hoodie guy, that he just met him that night, but yet again he seems to be so friendly with them. Not only with him, with all the frats. He's talking on his Apple Watch, so is Hayden. Many things are going on there. The pictures he's watching and Saeed is watching are at the same timings. Saeed is watching it at Banfield, Jovito is watching it at the grub truck. I don't know if this was all pre-planned. It does look like it was pre-planned. Definitely. But the question is, was it Koberger who did it? Was it Koberger who did it by himself, or was there multiple people involved? I still stand by what I've said from the very beginning, that it was multiple people involved. The 4 figures running and the 3 boys at Banfield is where I have my eyes always on, because nothing makes sense out of it. And when Steve Gonsalves is saying in the interview that some people say that it's a cover-up, that the police are covering it up, I've heard that. But I've never ever said that this is a cover-up. I'm saying that it could be a cover-up from the suspects involved. It could be a cover-up from the surviving roommates, allegedly. It could be a cover-up from all of these people being involved and finding a way to call FBI and distract them with the wrong tips. That's where cover-up comes in for me. But am I saying that Koberger is completely innocent? Absolutely not. There's something that doesn't make sense with his alibi. And I'm not just going to reason that away. It's interesting. There's still time. Let's see what he has. But the fact that Ann Taylor has said from the very beginning that Koberger doesn't know any of the 4 victims is very questionable. Why would he have done it if he's a random stalker? If he's a peeping Tom that decided just to come in one day, finally have the guts to walk inside the house when everyone is sleeping, would somebody take the chance with 5 roommates, a dog, and Ethan sleeping over? And Ethan is a huge boy. So may he rest in peace. Think about that. Who would take that chance? Didn't DM say that she heard rummaging upstairs? Wasn't that what was leaked out to the grand jury in the beginning? Why are things being changed? From the very beginning of this case, we were told that there were 3 unidentified male DNAs found inside and outside the crime scene. Why was these girls on social media? Whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, Yik Yak, which is a bullying app, Why did they call 911 and say there was an unconscious person if they were acting like they went into the room later on and Hunter said, go, go, go? Nothing makes sense. DM said she saw DM said she saw Xana in the sitting position, but yet again, she didn't find it alarming. Not alarming enough for her to call 911. I've always said from the beginning, for DM and BF to remain in this house, it just says that they were comfortable with the suspects or the suspect. But they're suspects, I've always said that. Now we hear it's different weapons. That means it's not only a K-bar, a Rambo knife, it's more. I showed you all the people at the Banfield. Looked like one of them was carrying. Shawalter looks like he's carrying a hatchet or something in his jacket. He's carrying a sharp-edged weapon. All of these people are carrying. Even when the police is carrying the things outside the house, you can see one of the shoes has red marks on it. And it looks like a male shoe. It looks like Ethan's shoes. You can see that they're carrying Ethan's golf set, which I don't believe they've returned it to the family yet, and Macy's vehicle, and Ethan's vehicle. That's what they have. But when they're carrying the golf set out, the officers, you could see that 2 or 3 golf sticks was missing. Was that used on these students? I believe it was. What is interesting too, and this is very interesting, is that allegedly they're saying now, from the documents that came out today, that Ethan and Xana were unalived at the same time. That clearly shows you that there was more than one suspect. There had to be 2 or more suspects, and Ethan was a huge boy. Ethan was tall, he was well built, he was 6.4 or 6.5. It just depends what really happened, because I believe they DOPED Maddie. They're going to put her to sleep. And it's strange that the coroner said that the toxicological reports are not important. Find that to be really strange. So somebody or some people, suspects with the S, in my opinion, unalived Ethan and Xana at the same time. Sad. What are they actually trying to hide? That the surviving roommates are now witnesses? That they possibly are involved, directly or indirectly? 2:10. That's a very interesting timing. I find 2 to 2:10 to be interesting for many reasons. We have the fact that the tripod was recording, which I talk about all the time. I think I'm the only creator who talks about the tripod so much, because I believe the tripod is extremely, extremely important. I don't know for what reason the tripod itself was there between 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. from the 12th to the 13th. It was recording. And it recorded a female at 2 a.m. running, hysterically outside, yelling and running from the sliding door to the front door, and there's a black truck outside, 1122 Kings Road. And we've seen that black truck driving down. We've seen with its lights flashing, front lights. Many people used to discuss in the beginning if it's the toilet lights of Maddie and Kaylee that was switched off, because I think people were trying to relate to the 4chan theory, which I still believe is true. I believe the figures were from Sigma Chi. So that black truck that is flashing its lights, that many people believe is Quincy Kelly's car, DM, his boyfriend's car. I've heard that it's sorry, what's her name? I heard it's DM, his stepmother is Black Chalk, and I've heard it's Queen Kelly's Black Chalk. Whoever's Black Chalk it is most likely DM, someone related to DM. We've heard rumors plenty of times from the beginning that Queen Kelly was seen that day. Queen Kelly and DM were seen with masks on. We've seen that, one with a pink mask and one with a black mask, allegedly. They were putting up pictures in VSOP and they took it down. I'm starting to believe, and I've always believed everything in the beginning was completely right. And my research, I still stick with what I personally believe. These are my thoughts, my theories. After seeing everything, after showing you how many people were carrying at the grub truck, after looking at all these timelines, after hearing a female yelling, "Stop it, stop," and that isn't something that is made up. That is something that is from the undercover police's body cam. That's why I don't believe the cops. I've never said are involved. I know they're working hard. I just believe that the surviving roommates and the suspects who are involved went out with the narrative, spread it, and made sure that they could cover it up for their advantages. That is just my personal opinion. So I want to know, was it DM who felt like the food truck, or BF? It couldn't be Maddie and Kaylee, unless Maddie and Kaylee were still hungry because they were sharing one carbonite that night. Nothing makes sense. Don't be surprised in a couple of days if you get a new documentary saying that, oh, actually, DM saw Mo and she saw red liquid in Xana's room. That's not what I'm saying the documentary says. I'm just saying don't be surprised if you hear something like that. Because as day goes by, it seems like Mo is being changed just to distract us from the 911 call. There's a reason. Don't ever forget that they put the 911 call on a gag order for so long. I always said it's the 911 call that will blow up this case. And this is getting really strange. We just want the truth. We want justice for all of the victims involved. And Koberger could be a suspect, or he could be involved, or he could be a victim. So everyone's entitled to a correct and fair justice. I wonder if there was actually a dash door cam. If somebody, if there was a DoorDash driver, did he and whoever came on Linda Lane pass lanes? Although I don't believe much in Linda Lane tapes, honestly, because I always believed it was altered. A lot of it, maybe a bit here and there could be the truth, but not everything. The grub truck, many people don't believe there's anything to see there, or the band field. But I believe there's everything to see there and in the corner club, which unfortunately we will not get to see. I believe that this house was being watched no matter what. By who? I don't know. And I've always believed in Kaylee having a stalker. Definitely. It makes sense with the motive that she was attacked the most. Wouldn't say most brutally, because I've heard different definition of all the 4 victims. But what I would say is it must have been awful and horrific and brutal for all 4 victims, because all 4 were cremated. And I find that to be revealing that there has to be more than one suspect. because within a matter of 15 minutes or less so, 4 students couldn't have been brutally unalived in such a manner within such a short time. And we can see the posture of Kohlberger, the way he walks, his hands, everything, before even they came with his diagnosis, ASD, or before they even started talking about him. Everyone could see that the way he walks in such a heavy way wouldn't have been easy for him to have committed all these 4 brutal, horrific crimes. Now that the fact that they said that Ethan and Xana were unalived at the same time, what is the chances? The chances is only one thing. There had to be more suspects. It wasn't one suspect. And I can't see Kohlberger doing this by himself if he did it. I can't see anyone else doing it by themselves. Where was Showalter that night? He's a hunter, skilled hunter. He has K-bar knives. He has a violent temper. He's very aggressive. He was thrown out of the grub truck. Not grub truck, sorry, the corner club. Allegedly. There was witnesses who wrote that on Facebook. Young sorority girls. He was harassing Kaylee and Maddie. Why aren't we looking at other people like Showalter? The girl who worked with him at the flatbread in Boise ID told us exactly what personality and what behaviors and what he's capable of doing. She had to physically slap him to get him out of her way. And she was reported for that to her work. But she said she wasn't the first girl that has been basically through harassments by Kohlberger. She said to watch out for him. So all these questions are important. Kohlberger isn't the only suspect that we should be looking at. There are more suspects to look at. And I find it really strange. I find it really up to today, from the beginning up to today, a red flag. Too many red flags with Jack G. Was he really at home? I don't believe what Steve G says. Oh, his movement showed that he was sleeping. He was moving from side to side and his phone was moving. No, you wouldn't know that, Steve G. Sorry to say that, you wouldn't know that. You said from the start that the cops were giving you information. So why would they give you? Yes, you would know about your daughter because of the autopsies you took. Why did you criminate Kaylee? Is it because of not only the injuries, is there something that you know, obviously, that we don't know? Because you said you were made to sign a waiver form. That the FBI made you sign a waiver form. They were waiting for something coming to your post, to your mail. Was there something of Kaylee's, some belonging of Kaylee's that was sent by mail to you, Steve? I really do believe you're a grieving father and you know definitely more than us, but there's something that doesn't make sense. Why was Jack D cleared out the last? Jack D and Jack Showalter and Adam were at the grub truck together, at the corner club. So these were people all seen out that night. I refuse personally to believe that Jack D fell asleep within an hour or lesser than an hour. Something doesn't make sense. Everyone knew about the unalivings before 911. And at 2 a.m., Stacy Chapin said it's the hardest time for her family. And she said her children called her, or her children told her. The reporter asked her clearly, She said, "Was it you? Was it them who told you?" She said, "Yes." So 2 a.m. And let's not forget, Stacy took a private autopsy for Ethan once again. And I think Ethan was cremated too. May he rest in peace. So she would know the results exactly at what time this happened. And it was at 2 a.m. Let's not forget, the reports today state that Ethan and Xana, it doesn't state when they came home. It was DM, BF, Kaylee, and Maddie who were at home. Very important. I'm struggling with all this to make sense of all this, but I feel very sorry to hear that Xana was in the sitting position and DM just ran and did not even bother to go inside BF's room or wherever, lock the doors and call 911. Let me know what you'll think. Have a lovely evening.